All right, everybody, welcome back to the All-Star MMA Pick Show. I'm your host, JHK, alongside with my dude, J-Spec, and of course, joining me again, the mastermind, Narco Cop MMA, one of the best, one of the most knowledgeable guys in the game. Today, we're going to be talking UFC 286, which is headlined by Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. We will go through all the fights, make our picks, make our predictions. So while we are doing that, please go in the descriptions, download the All-Star app, make your own picks, and join along, man, and join the community. Last week I went 7-6 in my picks, which is probably the worst week so far this year. My total for the whole year is 61-35, which is not that bad. Narco Cop, 61-35. You're a professional. Is that bad or is that okay? What
No,
would you rate?
I take that percentage. It's a good percentage there.
All right. And J Spec, he was 5-8. Not a good week for him. He's sitting at 52-44. He's in the plus, so that's all that matters at the end of the day. For all of you guys, like I said earlier, go in the descriptions while you're watching, make your picks, challenge us. You can go in the app and challenge us and take our points. You accumulate points, you win prizes. And also if you're in the chat, put your predictions in. Give your tidbits. Give your little information if you have any, and we'll put it on the screen. Now let's jump into this weekend's card. To kick off the event, we have a women's flyweight bout. Let me get the app on the screen and let's put this matchup up there. Let's go. All right. So we got Veronica Hardy versus Juliana Miller. Hardy sitting at 27 years old, 5'4", southpaw, 6-4-1 record, 1-4 in the UFC. She is coming off a 3-year absence from competition due to health issues. She's returning to flyweight. She has a 50% finishing rate, 1 knockout, 2 submissions. She is the underdog in this matchup. Miller, 26 years old, 5'7" orthodox fighter, 3-1 record. This is her UFC debut. She was the Tough 30 flyweight tournament champion, 100% finishing rate, 1 knockout, 2 submissions, 8 months between fights for her. Before we get to Narco Cop, I'm going to play a clip from my interview with Hardy. Here you go.
I really like her as a fighter. She's like, I watched her in the tough. It's like her personality, her like, okay, I'm an underdog. I'm going to show you. That's something to really admire from her. She keeps going. If things aren't going her way, she doesn't get discouraged. She continues until she finds a way to get a victory. And she's a tenacious girl. She has great grappling and a great spirit. So I do expect her to try and take me down or try and be on the ground with me. Of course, that's her strong suit. That's what she's known as, and that's kind of what you want to get, like a crazy submission, so you can get 50 G's on your debut. Like, I just want to go and I want to show the martial artist that I am, and I feel like I haven't been able to, and that's kind of more my goal, because I've worked so hard for so long, and it hasn't showed, and I think it's about time for it to come out. And obviously, I want to make the team and everybody that's helped me proud, especially Dan Hardy.
Narco Cop, man, what do you see in this fight?
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know what to make of Veronica Hardy. Gone for 3 years. Already had pretty bad cardio issues when you ask me. Bay Malecki fight, very, very gassed in that fight. Somehow Malecki couldn't finish her because she is not a UFC level fighter, in my opinion. She's got an armbar against Vianney, which is not a bad look, but she's been finished by Robertson and Ashley Evans Smith. In this fight against Miller, the big issue here is Miller has very good cardio. Miller pushes a very high pace for women's MMA, and she is pretty mean for the 125-pound weight division. And from what I've seen from Hardy, I don't think she likes the pressure. I don't think she's going to like the pace. And at some point, I do think Miller breaks her. I'm going to go with Miller round 2 submission. It could happen in round 3, but I do see a stoppage here where Miller eventually breaks Hardy. 3-year layoff is not something to come off of easily. And she already had cardio issues. I don't see it getting any better.
J-Spec, what do you got?
Let me share some thoughts from the fans who participated in our polls, available right there on Twitter. So we got Andrew saying, this chick who's married to a former employee of a winner of Tough, sometimes you don't need a tape to decide what's going on. Dana is telling you loud and clear. On the other side, Zap's betting picks, Veronica's line is definitely wide at plus 350. She's had a rough go of it, but finally has a home base, is training at MMA Masters, and also did some work with Great Britain top team, and has taken a good amount of time to recover physically. The poll comes in pretty clear. The fans supporting Juliana Miller with 63% of the vote. And just talking with people, it's kind of like it's basically a hard sell to try to get people to support Hardy at this point. All the question marks, like Narco mentioned, that's pretty much all red flags as the way the fans feel going into this one. And my personal take on this, and you listen to the rest of JHK's interview, is at least I can totally respect Hardy for addressing her issues, right? I know when I was younger in racing, I would just try to do more of the same. Not until I was after 30 did I start assessing what could I do better or change up. It's cool to see a woman still in her prime considering those things, and hopefully she can pull it off. But for me, I'm picking Miller.
All right, before I get to my pick, I'm going to get to some of these comments. Leslie Jenkinson, have fun, everyone. Have fun, Leslie. We got Antoine Willis, excited for this breakdown. Really looking forward to it. It's going on right now. And we got Brianna Frost. I'm looking forward to it too. Brianna, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to take Miller. It's hard to take somebody that's coming off a 3-year layoff with health issues, right? And Miller, like Narco Cop said, she's tenacious, man, and she will go to the ground. And I feel like this fight is going to hit the ground. And when you have somebody that has been fighting recently and fighting back to back to back, you got to take her. And I'm going to take Miller in this fight, even though I like Hardy. She's a phenomenal person, but we're talking about fighting. And I'm going to take Miller by submission. I think this fight lasts into the 3rd round. All right, let me get back to the picks. All right, so the next fight on the docket is a lightweight clash between Jai Herbert and Ludovic Klein. Herbert, 34 years old, 6'1" orthodox fighter, 12-4 record, 2-3 in the UFC. He has wins over Kyle Nelson and Kama Worthy, 83% finishing rate, 9 knockouts, 1 sub, 8-month layoff for him, and he is the underdog. Klein, 28 years old, 5'7" southpaw, 19-4 record, 3-2 in the UFC. Wins over Mason Jones, Devontae Smith, and Shane Young. 84% finishing rate, 8 knockouts, 8 subs, 8 months between fights for him. Narco Cop, this is a fun matchup. What do you see in this one?
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup between what I see as two strikers. Ludovic Klein can grapple a little, but he's primarily a striker. What's very important here is, for me, is I see a different guy in Ludovic Klein at 155. When he was at 45, yes, he still had the power. Yes, he still had, these attributes that he still has now. But the one thing that he didn't have at 45 was cardio. He really fell off a cliff when it came, after like the 7.5 minute mark. This guy really, really slowed down. And part of the reasoning is the guy is jacked up. He's very muscular. There wasn't really a lot of weight to cut there. So I don't know how this guy made 45. But when you look at him at 55, he's still, well built, has a lot of muscle on him. So this guy is probably a better fit at 55, and you see it in him. Looked very, very good against Mason Jones in a fight that I honestly thought Mason Jones was going to break this guy, because Mason Jones is a guy that comes forward, has a very good chin, very high pace, and will keep coming. You hit him and he keeps coming. And I thought he was going to break Ludovic Klein eventually, and that was not the case, man. Ludovic Klein looked really, really good. Basically won that fight from pillar to post. Looked very impressive. And now he faces a guy in Jai Herbert, who's been knocked out very, very viciously twice, right? The one against Topuria was absolutely horrible to see. I mean, his eyes rolling back, just a brutal knockout. And then when you go back a couple of more fights, Francisco Trinaldo was an absolute terrible knockout as well. A huge overhand left, and he just put him to sleep. And, looking at these two knockouts, it's hard. And I'm going to say it again. It's very hard to come back. I know he came back and won against Kyle Nelson, but your chin is just never the same when you get knocked out like that. So I did see a different Jai Herbert last time out in the sense that he wasn't as aggressive. He wasn't as wild as he usually is. I mean, the guy has beautiful striking. When it comes to his 1-2, they're really nice, and he's got power in his hands. We saw it against Topuria. He really rocked Topuria pretty bad. I believe it was a head kick, and then he just put it on Topuria early. Couldn't finish him, and then he gets finished. So the way I'm going to play it, and I know this is a little off key, is I think Ludovic Klein wins a decision here. I know a lot of people think this ends inside the distance, and yeah, historically, that's how Jai Herbert's fights go. He either gets killed or he does the killing. But we saw a different Jai Herbert, like I said, last fight, and I think Ludovic Klein wins a decision here.
J-Spec.
All right. Sharing some thoughts from the crowd. Preston Kesseling says, Jai tends to struggle with the striking defense at times, but he likes to fight in the pocket. Klein is also 2-0 after moving to lightweight. See Klein catching Jai and getting the KO victory. Spawn saying, I got Klein as well. Herbert's a little loose with his defense and chinny. TKO round 1 or he gets dropped in sub. Interesting enough, the poll came in deadlocked, 50-50. Fans can't decide. They're on both sides evenly, and that's, I guess, what we're here for. I'll tell you what, I'm inclined to go with Klein. All right, give me some Klein in this matchup.
Yeah, nice one. Hey, yeah, Jai Herbert, he's a guy that, like Narco Cop said, he's kill or be killed. When you look at his fights against Topuria likes to load up, and I feel like Jai Herbert took advantage of that early on, but then wasn't able to put him away, right? In this fight, Klein is a much more faster, crisper striker. I think Klein goes in there, even weathers the storm in the first round and goes to the second round and finishes him by TKO. I'm going to take Klein TKO in the second round in this fight. I like Klein a lot in this matchup. Now, let's move on to the women's flyweight division. Joanna Wood takes on Luana Carolina. Wood, 37 years old, 5'6", orthodox fighter, 15-8 record, 7-8 in the UFC, sitting on 3 straight losses. She has wins over Jessica Ai, Andrea Lee, and Ariana Lipsky. 40% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 1 sub, and she has been out for about a year. Carolina, 29 years old, 5'6", orthodox fighter, 8-3 record, 3-2 in the UFC. Wins over Lupi Godinez, Poliana Botello, and Priscilla the Zombie. 38% finishing rate, 2 KOs, 1 sub, and she has also been out for around a year, and she is the underdog in this matchup. Narco Cop, do you even see this fight not going to decision?
Yeah, I mean, I see it going to decision because, I mean, Wood is not much of a finisher. Carolina, pretty durable. She's not much of a finisher. Honestly, Carolina just look. I mean, when I watch this lady and she's 3-2 in the UFC, she is so damn sloppy on the feet. I mean, she's like falling over, like she's kicking, and like she just looks very, very clumsy in there. But she gets it done, man. She's 3-2 in the UFC. Somehow beats Lupi Godinez, because Lupi Godinez had to move up a weight class. She couldn't get takedowns against Carolina. She struggled. And Carolina was a bigger girl in there. Now you have Joanne Calderwood, who's coming off 3 straight losses. I think she's coming off 2 stoppages by getting choked out. I doubt Carolina's choking her out. She has faced a very good level of opposition, so I'll give her that. The experience, big experience edge on the Wood side. I think Wood is the cleaner striker here. She might be able to get some grappling going. 37 years old. it's a hard sell for me, but I just can't stand what I see with Carolina, man. I don't think she does anything well. And she came off a terrible knockout, a spinning elbow from Molly McCann. So I'm going to go with Wood by decision. But, man, I just don't want to play anything on this fight if I can. But gun to my head, it's Wood by decision.
All right, J-Spec.
All right, sharing the thoughts from the people. Andrew saying, let's be real. There's no edge here. Luana is just not a high caliber fighter, in my opinion. Wood's confidence is shot. Keep your money in your pockets. Don't try picking a winner. Just sit back and attempt to enjoy. Dreaded Packer saying, Luana might be a bit overlooked here. JoJo hasn't looked good recently. A toss-up. The poll concludes with Mrs. Wood getting 65% of the fans' vote. Man, I know Calderwood, or formerly Calderwood, Mrs. Wood, geez, hasn't really delivered recently, but think about who it's been against, like Grasso, Santos. We're not in the same ballpark here. No disrespect to Carolina. She's not going to finish Joanna in the first round, which seems to be Joanne's weak point. So with all that being said, I'm signing up for one more time. And you know what? I've heard a theory out there. Just a theory from people saying that this could be like Joanne's like magical walk off. This could be her sunset run, get the win, and then just kind of go on with her life and other great things and kind of get the win on home turf, so to speak. So with all that being said, yeah, Mrs. Wood is my pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is her last fight. I think she's gonna retire after this fight, and this is a setup fight for her to win, and then have her speech, take off her gloves, set it in the middle of the cage. Luana, I don't remember any of her victories. When I saw her on this, I thought, is she winless in the UFC? Because I don't remember any of her fights except for the ones that she's lost. And if they're gonna stand and strike, you got to go with Wood, right? I think Wood's gonna keep the distance and a lot of leg kicks, and be very conservative and get the decision victory. I'm taking Wood by decision, man. It's just, I don't see a finish in this fight. Now let's move on to the flyweight division. A flyweight matchup between Jake Hadley and Malcolm Gordon. Hadley, 26 years old, 5'7" southpaw, 9-1 record, 1-1 in the UFC. 2021 Contender Series winner. He took out Mitch Raposo and then submitted Carlos Candelario in 2022 in his first UFC victory. 78% finishing rate, 2 KOs, 5 subs, 4 months between fights for him. Gordon, 32 years old, 5'7" switch stance fighter, 14-6 record, 2-3 in the UFC. Wins over Dennis Bondar and Francisco Figueiredo. 79% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 6 subs, 5-month layoff for him, and he is the underdog. Narco Cop, what do you see in this matchup?
I see Hadley just running through this guy, to be honest. I'm when I listen to a lot of people talk about Hadley, a lot of people talk kind of down on this guy because he came in very cocky. I don't know if you remember watching Dana White's Contender Series. He came in very cocky, talking a lot of nonsense, and he even missed weight. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that in Dana White's Contender Series, but he still got the contract because he looked impressive. And when you look at this guy's game and his loss against Nascimento, that loss to Nascimento actually means a lot to me because watching this guy roll against Nascimento, who's very, very good on the ground, very huge for the division, and actually, held his own. Yeah, he lost that fight, but he put Nascimento in some bad spots, man, where Nascimento had to get out of some submissions. This guy's very sneaky on the ground. I think he's very strong in general. But the one aspect that I really like that I watch, and it's his boxing, man. His body shots are just very impressive. His pace, his pressure. This guy is well-rounded, has a very good chin. I like every aspect of this guy's game right now. So when I look on the other side, I see a guy in Malcolm Gordon. Yeah, he looked good in a loss against Mokaev, where he got finished very late. But it's Mokaev, and he actually had top time on Mokaev in that fight. Believe it or not, he looked pretty good. And I was kind of surprised he didn't get finished earlier by Mokaev. But the difference between Mokaev and Hadley is the fact that Hadley is going to keep this on the feet and absolutely destroy Gordon on the feet. I mean, his boxing is really good, and I think Gordon's chin is not good whatsoever. And it's going to get tested here. He's going to eat some body shots. He's going to lower his hands, and Hadley's going to find the KO. And I think it's going to come in round 1.
J-Spec.
All right, let me share some thoughts from the crowd. Preston Kesserling says, even though I think Gordon will have more success on the feet, Hadley's wrestling will be too much for Gordon to handle. Hadley by sub. There's one opinion. The poll came in nice and strong for Jake Hadley. 73% going Mr. Hadley's way. I don't know if you guys are strong on, geography and whatnot. I'm not. But this is technically the Battle for London, not a historical war reference. London, England versus London, Ontario, Canada, just for funs. But on the other side of this, dude, like, let's be real. Poor Malcolm has been kind of set up. The last fight, this fight, it's a classic old line versus young line. Let's kind of do what we do here and build the young guys up. Let's give him some wins. And not saying he's an easy guy. He's a pro fighter. You got to get in there and do it. With that being said, I feel like the setup is in. The guy who's supposed to get the win is in. And if you can read it, it's clear as day, but you can hear it from me. Hadley is my pick.
Dirty Reg 22 D1 Gordon forces and wins the decision in an upset. Possibly, man. I'm gonna take Hadley in this one, right? I think they neutralize each other if they go to the ground. I think both guys are talented on the ground, but I think they could get out of whatever they try to put each other in. So it's gonna end up on the feet, and Hadley's just better. You know what I mean? I feel like Gordon, he might seem like he cuts a little bit too much weight, to be honest with you. And I think his cardio might not be as good as Hadley's. I'm gonna take Hadley by decision in this one. I think they go to the judges. Moving forward, middleweight bout between Christian Leroy Duncan and Dusko Todorovic. Duncan, 27 years old, 6'2", switch stance fighter, 7-0 record, undefeated UFC debut. He's making his UFC debut. Sorry about that. Former Cage Warriors middleweight champion, 86% finishing rate, 5 KOs, 1 sub, 4 months between fights for him. Dusko, 28 years old, 6'1" orthodox fighter, 12-3, 3-3 in the UFC. 2019 Contender Series winner. He has wins over Jordan Wright, Daquan Townsend, and Maki Pitolo. 83% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 3 subs, 5 months between fights for him, and he is the underdog. This is a wacky matchup to me. Narco, what do you see?
Wacky matchup to me. I think when you want to talk about setups, I think this is a setup right here for Duncan. I mean, making his UFC debut, wasn't in Dana White's Contender Series or anything. They just brought him into the UFC. Here you go, your first fight in your hometown, and we're giving you a very, very tough test in Dusko Todorovic, a guy that's beaten 3 guys in the UFC that are no longer in the UFC, I believe, and has looked pretty bad, to be honest. Jordan Wright fight, Jordan Wright almost got him out of there. I mean, he literally hung on in that first round not to get out of there. So he came back and kudos to him. He wins that fight, but I have no idea how he's going to beat Leroy Duncan. Leroy Duncan, much more athletic, faster guy, better striker, better grappler, in my opinion, as well. He's just better everywhere. And I don't see Dusko having any success here, even early. The one thing I do see with Christian Leroy Duncan is I don't think he has heavy hands. I don't think he's a power puncher. He's more of accumulation-based or something explosive. And you could see it on his tape. Like, a lot of his finishes are like from spinning stuff, flying knees. The guy is super, super athletic. And I like what I see from this guy. I think this guy is going to grow. He's going to get better. I think this is a little easy matchup for him against Dusko, to be honest. And I really don't like saying that in the UFC, especially for newcomers, but I just don't see a path for Dusko here. Give me Leroy Duncan by second round KO.
All right, J-Spec.
All right, sharing a thought from Andrew. I think Duncan rolls here. He reminds me a lot of MVP from Bellator. He has endless cardio and always presses forward. Dusko will be shooting and clinching to save his life. Not not this time though. Whether this fight is on the feet or on the ground, I favor Duncan. Um, Spawn going Dusko just because the other guy has three first names. I like it. I like thinking that way. Um, the poll came in pretty clear. 68% of the vote going to Christian Leroy Duncan. Now, just my 2 cents. All right. I have not done well. And you guys can look up in the app, the All Star app, rewatch our shows. When there's 7-0 fighters coming in for their debut, you know how many of them shit the bed? Almost all of them. That's how many. And yes, I agree with Narco saying that this is a great setup for a guy who didn't have to do the hard route, didn't even have to go contender series. Just boom, you're fighting in jolly old England. Great, great, great. But you know what comes with that? A shit ton of pressure, like a lot. And Dusko has fought already like 6 times in the UFC. This is not his first rodeo. It's his 7th rodeo. So with that being said, I'm going with Dusko just because I'm fading debuters in high pressure situations. That's it. My pick, Dusko Todorovic.
I see that Todorovic has a puncher's chance. He's always had a puncher's chance. That's what we know him for. You know, I mean, we've known him for going in there and getting into wars, and he gets finished or he finishes the fight, right? And I think in this fight, he also has a puncher's chance. But Duncan is just a more complete fighter, more all around. He has everything. Like there's one. If there was like the Mortal Kombat energy bars, Duncan would fill in more than Dusko. And my insiders at Tiger Muay Thai, because Duncan was at Tiger Muay Thai for the last 2 months or something like that, tell me you better put all your money on Duncan. So my insiders tell me that I'm gonna put my money on Duncan. I'm gonna take Duncan by knockout in the second round. I think that's what is going to happen. Moving forward, we got a featherweight matchup. I like this one. Actually, I don't like this one, but I like the guy that's fighting here. Lerone Murphy taking on Gabriel Santos, a late replacement. Murphy, 31 years old, 5'9" orthodox fighter, 11-0-1 record, 3-0-1 in the UFC, 15 straight wins for him. Wins over Makwan, Amirkhani, Douglas De Andrade, and Ricardo Ramos. 64% finishing rate, all KOs. 17-month layoff. So that's a little asterisk right there. Santos, 26 years old, 5'9" orthodox fighter, 10-0 record, undefeated. UFC debut for him. Former LFA featherweight champion, 50% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 4 subs, 6-week turnaround, and he is sitting at the underdog position. Narco Cop, man, what do you see? This is a weird one.
I think it's a very good fight, actually. I'll give people a little nugget on Murphy and why he's been gone for so long. I don't know if anybody knows, but Murphy was very, very close to death. Head-on car accident, smashed his head, I guess, through the windshield and came out bleeding out. He barely made it, he said. Like doctors told him like he was almost done. Then another piece of info that when I watched an interview of his is the fact that he said that doctors told him not to fight again. So that was a little asterisk for me. I don't like hearing that. I don't like hearing the fact that this guy almost died less than a year ago. And now he's, that was 43 weeks ago when this happened. And just kind of scary to see. And now he's coming in and facing a basic guy that a lot of people are not going to know in Gabriel Santos. But I'm pretty familiar with this guy. This guy has a win over Elvis Brenner, who's in the UFC and just recently got a win against Zubari Tugugov. And his last opponent, Jose Delano in LFA, looked super impressive in that fight as a huge underdog coming in against Delano. Because that fight right there was actually a fight for Delano to win and for Delano to make it into the UFC. Because Delano has looked super impressive himself. Gabriel Santos just went in there and absolutely dismantled Delano in the striking. I mean, that fight was all striking. And Gabriel Santos tore him apart. The fight before that, Gabriel Santos got dropped very bad in the first round against, I I don't remember the Mauricio Barbosa, a guy that has a ton of power in his hands. Another Brazilian that's an up and coming guy. He survived it and finished a guy in the second round. I really like what I see from Santos all around. He's good on the ground. He's very good on the feet. But the problem is he's coming in on very short notice, like 8 or 9 days, having to fly from Brazil all the way to England. When I look at his Instagram, not a lot of training lately, after his fight in LFA, which I don't blame him. It's such a hard sell for me to give people Santos. But there's a lot of question marks, man, on Murphy. He's been out for a long time. Like I mentioned, that other stuff. So I'm going to reluctantly go with Murphy here. I think he's the more skilled fighter at this point. He also has more of the advantage as far as being home, not having to fly. And basically he's been in the UFC. He's been under the bright lights. So I'm going to go reluctantly again with Murphy by decision here.
All right, J-Spec.
All right. Preston says, even with Santos boxing, he's too up and down in his fights. Murphy tends to wait and bait his opponents, which has led to 7 of his 11 wins by KO. I think Murphy catches him while Santos tries to land one of his speedy combos. Baba Yaga says, I'm going with UK's Lerone Murphy. He has decorated record and resume. My boy. All right. So the poll comes in 63% for Mr. Murphy. Now, here's my thoughts. I'm super glad Narco brought up the backstory with Murphy. Appreciate that, Narco. As someone who's almost died a couple times himself, let me tell you something. You live better. That's the upside to almost dying. You live so much better, and you go to the maximum, at least for a little while. And so I can see him saying, man, forget you doctors. I'm going to continue doing what I want to do, because when the time's up, your time's up. So on the other side of that, undefeated fighter, but also making his debut on short notice. Those are big X's for me personally, man. So with that being said, it's more of like what has more negative. And in this case, the quick turnaround, the debut, the traveling, all the stuff that Narco said, man. I got to go with Murphy on this one.
All right, before I get to my pick, we got some guys in the chat. Dirty Rare says Murphy should win this. Activate A, shouting out Narco, you're Narco. All right. Man, Murphy is a talent, man. He's a very, very talented fighter, but near-death experience, and the doctors are telling you not to come back. It's just like, man. I like Murphy a lot, man. I've known Murphy for a while. I was supposed to interview him, but I just couldn't match times because he's in the UK. Oh, I'm gonna have to go with my guy, man, because I just gotta go with my guy. Because Santos, he's just, I don't know much about him, man. I'm just gonna have to go with Murphy by decision. But I'm gonna tell people, when fighters have a near-death experience and they come back, they regularly lose their first fight back. They regularly do that. Brian Barberena almost died. He came back and lost the decision. Even like Frank Mir, going way back. Frank Mir, he almost had a near-death experience, came back, and he lost his first fight coming back. So those are some examples. Anyways, moving forward, a flyweight prospect matchup between Mohamed Mokaev and Jafel Filho. Mokaev, 22 years old, 5'7", orthodox fighter, 8-0 record, undefeated, 3-0 in the UFC, 32 straight victories for him. Wins over Cody Durden, Charles Johnson, and Malcolm Gordon. 75% finishing rate, 1 knockout, 4 subs, 5 months between fights for him, and he's also coming off an injury. Filho, 29 years old, 5'7", orthodox fighter, 14-2 record. This will be his UFC debut. He's sitting on 5 straight wins. 2022 Contender Series winner, 3rd round TKO last September. 93% finishing rate for him, 5 knockouts, 8 subs, and he's sitting at the underdog spot. This is going to be a fun one, I think. Narco, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Mokaev is a prospect. I mean, the guy is crazy good with his wrestling, very good pace. I mentioned him earlier against Gordon. He didn't look the best, but he still found a way to finish in the 3rd. Filho, Dana White's Contender Series guy, looked good against Roybert Echeverria, who I consider a pretty good striker. But what's getting his leg chewed off in that fight, by the way, before he found the knockout. Guy throws hard. He's a 2-stripe black belt. He's very, very good on the ground. He's always attacking submissions. You take this guy to the ground, he's attacking. The problem is Mokaev is going to have an insane speed advantage here. Like, I can't even tell you guys. Filho is very, very slow, like mechanical, very, very built and strong, but extremely slow. I think Mokaev is going to piece him up on the feet if he wants. He's much quicker. He's going to get his leg kicks off. And if he wants to take this fight to the ground, I think he could take it to the ground pretty easily. In his fight against Bruno Correa, Filho had his back taken for a couple of rounds in that fight. And Correa is not at Mokaev's level. So I think this is a big, big levels fight. And Filho is definitely a couple of levels below Mokaev at this point. I think Mokaev finds a finish here probably in round 2 or 3. I'm going to go with KO here. I'm going to go with ground and pound. I think Filho's really good on the ground. I know he's been subbed before, but he's like I said, he's a 2-stripe black belt. He knows how to attack on the ground, but I think Mokaev eventually wears this guy out and gives him the business on the ground with ground and pound.
J-Spec, what's the people saying?
People saying, well, first off, Capital DFS Plays says Mokaev is the play here, but his opponent is very dangerous. Then our lovable human x-ray machine, Kevin Nicholson, says, I'll pick Mokaev, but with some trepidation. Mokaev decided to not have surgery on his dislocated right shoulder in order to make this fight card. Dislocated shoulders are prone to repeat and was bad enough to have surgery recommended. Caution! ! And we appreciate Kevin. He's a licensed physical therapist, so he knows what he's talking about, people. The poll comes in whopping 88% for Muhammad in this one. It is a landslide, people. That's the way they feel. It's all aboard. Maybe the word hype train, I don't know, but he's a legitimate prospect that everyone recognizes and sees a lot of talent in, and that's just the facts. Pretty much everyone I talk to feels that way. Now, a little side note, he offered and actually did train with his former opponent, Charles Johnson. Then I saw out of Malcolm Gordon's mouth that he even offered to train with him for this camp to help him. Dude, that is the way of the warrior. That is true martial arts spirit, and I cannot be a bigger fan of it. Like, I love that. I love that attitude. I love that mindset, and I love Mokaev in this matchup. Give me some of him.
Double flush. Great discussion, gentlemen. When Narco talks, I listen. We all listen, man. You got to listen to Narco Cop. Jesus, MMA Jesus 316. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. I'm going to take Mokaev in this fight by submission in the second round. Mokaev, yes, I think the reason why he got a third round finish against Malcolm Gordon is because he had the shoulder issues. And I believe after that fight, he got the proper physical therapy and everything to get back to training to compete on this card. If he wasn't ready, he wouldn't fight on this card. I don't think he's in a rush. I think he has good people around him, good management, all of that stuff. So I'm taking Mokaev in this fight. And let's move on. Lightweight matchup between Sam Patterson and Yanal Ashmoz. Patterson, 26 years old, 6'3" orthodox fighter, 10-1-1 record. UFC debut. He is sitting on 9 straight victories. 2022 Contender Series winner, second round submission last September. 90% finishing rate, 4 knockouts, 5 subs. Yanal, 27 years old, 5'9" orthodox fighter, 6-0 record, undefeated. He's making his UFC debut as well. 6 straight victories for him. He is a PFL veteran. He actually fought on the 2022 Challenger Series. 83% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 2 subs, and he is on around a year layoff. Before we get to Narco Cop, I will play my clip from the interview that I did with Patterson.
Yeah, he's a tough guy, you know, like it's hard to what he brings because the last time he fought was a year ago. So if he's improved as much as I have in a year, he's not going to be the same fighter. That's the kind of mindset I've got going into this, you know, like I'm expecting the best version of him today. And yeah, if I can really only go off his attributes, so he's not going to have grown he's not going to have grown a foot in a year, and his body shape ain't going to have changed, like he's going to be the same kind of stature. So yeah, he's tough, durable, and I believe he's going to come with that undefeated confidence, that confidence that because you haven't lost, you can't lose, and that's going to be your biggest downfall. I'm going out this performance of my life on, like I truly believe I'm going to go out there and dominate. I prepare every single fight like for war. I'm ready for a 3-round all-out war, but I plan on this being a pitch like shutout. However the fight goes, I plan on putting on the performance of my life and showing out.
Narco Club, do you see a war in this one?
Maybe for a little bit, but there's some major flaws, to be honest, on Sam Peterson's side, and I think it's his striking defense. I mean, it's very, very bad. He's got the tall man defense where he leaves his chin up there in the air, and he can get hit clean, and it's not good. It's not good. You're just looking to get knocked out. What I like about Sam Patterson is he's a dog. I mean, this guy's a dog. There's been fights where he's been hurt. He's been almost out of there, but, the guy just keeps fighting. He comes back. He's got very, very good cardio. He's super long. His front choke series is extremely dangerous. I mean, I see it in almost every single fight that I've watched on his tape. He always goes for these anacondas, these front headlock series. I mean, he's very, very nasty with them. And, this Ashmoz guy, I don't know how he got into the UFC. I mean, he didn't really look good on the PFL Challenger Series. He won a decision against Hughes. He's getting taken down a lot in that fight. Both guys were super gassed. Sky is very stocky, but he's going to be at a significant reach and size disadvantage here. He wrestles some, but again, this guy is very, very sloppy. If you ask me, I don't like what I see in his striking. I don't like what I see in his grappling, and his cardio seems to be not there. I think Sam Peterson probably gets to him a little on the feet. Ashmoz eventually shoots, and I think he's going to get wrapped up by Sam Peterson. I think it's going to be some kind of anaconda, Darce type of thing where, and once he locks it in with those long limbs, man, good luck getting out. So I like a second round submission for Peterson here.
J-Spec.
First off, I want to say sorry, Sam Patterson. I miswrote your name. I wrote Peterson in the poll. I meant Patterson, and apologize. So the fans, they're coming with, the only thing that makes me question Patterson is how low his hands are when he fights. Yanal throws heavy hooking shots. If he can defend those, the height, reach, and cardio of Patterson are going to help him win this fight, most likely by decision. And thank you, Preston, for weighing in on that. The poll comes in 60% for Mr. Patterson. The fans picking, that's pretty close. 50-50 is dead even. So 60%, that's pretty close according to them. Now, looking at Ashmoz, look him up, look about what he's been up to. He's kind of had limited competition, to be 100% honest. Back to Patterson now. You check out that interview that he did with JHK, and I know you will. He said some pretty cool stuff. Like, I look at my wins, I critique my own fights real hard. Even the stuff, anything that I don't like, I try to fix. Like, dude, that is awesome stuff to hear. Oftentimes we don't improve off our wins. You always hear improving off your losses. So that kind of mindset is really strong and really great, in my opinion. And since Sam Patterson is a better fighter than I am a proofreader, I am going with Mr. Patterson.
MMA Jesus 420 says Sam via sub. Activate A. Ashmoz doesn't look great. Quincy Brown is saying Patterson by sub. A lot of people are really on Patterson via sub. Make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the app so you guys can make your picks right here and hit that subscribe. It always helps, and hit that like button. I'm going to take Patterson by sub as well. I think Patterson is going to be able to quell anything that Ashmoz has. Ashmoz, of course, he does have the power to knock him out, but I feel Patterson is going to go in there immediately and wrestle him. If if Ashmoz doesn't do it first. And that's what I see in that fight. All right, next one coming up. Another one in the lightweight division between Chris Duncan and Omar Morales. Duncan, 29 years old, 5'10" orthodox fighter, 9-1 record. This will be his UFC debut. He's sitting on back-to-back wins. 3-0 Bellator veteran, 2022 Contender Series winner, first round knockout last August, 89% finishing rate, 7 knockouts, 1 sub. Morales, 37 years old, 5'11" orthodox fighter, 11-3 record, 3-3 in the UFC, sitting on 2 straight losses, wins over Shane Young, Gabriel Benitez, and Donghyun Ma. 64% finishing rate, 2 knockouts, 5 subs, 9 bunts between fights for him. Before we get to Narco, I'm going to play a clip from my interview with Chris Duncan. Here you go.
He could be dangerous if I take him light-hearted. You know, obviously everybody in the UFC has a decent skill set. He's lost 2 in a row, so there's a bit of pressure on him, obviously. But you know, I don't take anybody lightly. I've been over, as you know, an American top team, putting in the work and making sure that I'm on top form as well. So he's in for a long night, put it that way. I'm not too sure how big he'll be or how small he'll be, but I'll just need to kind of size him up when it comes to the weigh-in. He's a great fighter. Like, he's never done anything to me, or he's not said anything to me or anything like that. So I'm looking forward to sharing the octagon with him, and he's a great opponent for me. And you know, I just can't wait to get in there, as you can imagine. That'll be white noise, man. I don't give a fuck about that. I'm just going to go out there and show them why I'm fucking due this 50k. The guy's getting put out flat, and if he runs away from me, I'm gonna slow him down. Like, this is my time, you know. I need to do this. I need to show the world what I'm capable of.
Narco Cobb, what do you see in this matchup?
I see a guy in Chris Duncan that has very terrible flaws on the feet. Guy got, in my opinion, probably got knocked out around 4 or 5 times in his Dana White Contender Series fights alone. Somehow came back, which I give him that. I mean, he's got resiliency, he's got toughness, and he has very big power in his hands. But I mean, his striking defense, I mean, he's been at American Top Team for a while, and it just doesn't seem to be improving. Just drops his hands all the time. Yeah, and it's a bad habit of his. When I watch his tape, like, when he's ready to come in the pocket to throw, he literally drops his hands to throw. So I don't like seeing that at all. On the other side, Omar Morales, I think he's coming in a little bit on short notice. I don't know how long, but this was originally Figlac, right? So I'm not sure how long of a notice he had here. That's the one thing I don't have, which is, I think, a little important here, because Morales is up there in age. I mean, he's 37 years old. He's not a young guy, but he's a pretty good technical striker. You know, the guy has pretty good technical striking skills. I think he actually has a very good chin. I mean, when you watch Uras Medic land big bombs on this guy, eventually I got him out of there, but he took a lot of those pretty good standing. Am I saying he's going to take the shots from Duncan? No, I think Duncan hits very, very hard, and he doesn't want to take his shots. However, Duncan is just super sloppy when it comes to his defense. I don't like seeing that. I honestly really wanted to play Duncan here, find a way to play Duncan, because, you know, a little bit of short notice, older guy, you know, he's got to fly over there. Morales does. Yes, Duncan has to fly there too. But, man, Duncan looks in really, really good shape when I look at his Instagram. This guy is really grinding at American Top Team. And maybe we see some improvements here. Maybe we don't. Heck, why not? I'm going to go with Duncan. Knockout round 1.
Wow. J-Spec.
All right. So we got Baba Yaga weighing in with Omar has everything to win and nothing to lose. Preston coming in with, can we talk about how Omar has one of the worst nicknames in UFC history? We'll talk about that on Saturday during the watch party for the All-Star when we get together and watch the fights, my man. On the other side of this, the poll comes in with 62% supporting Mr. Duncan in this case. Now, I think that's kind of big, all right? especially with some of the flaws like Narco just mentioned a few moments ago. Also, he's debuting, folks. He's debuting against a already 6-fight veteran, 7th rodeo coming up for Mr. Morales in the UFC octagon. These things cannot be discredited. We've seen it many, many times. And plus, I don't often bring up the bookies, but I'm gonna right now. They had it like really narrow, and the line has moved just a little bit. I think Omar was like an even money underdog. Now he's a little bit of the favorite. That means they can't decide either. This is good as flipping a coin as you're gonna get in the UFC. So with all that being said, that experience, that been there, done that factor for me is important. So I'm signing up for Miss Morales on this one.
Brianna Frost is taking Duncan by decision. Dirty Reg 22. Let's go Duncan. Drickus Duplessis. Lachlan 88. Duncan by KO. So we got a lot of Duncan supporters in the chat. I'm going to take, this is a toss-up to me. Seriously, this is a toss-up. We've seen Morales go in there and throw bombs with the best of them, right? And take shots, shot after shot after shot. And we've also seen Duncan do the same exact thing. So it's like you guys both said, it's like we don't know exactly who to pick. So if we're going to take the coin flip, you're going to take the hometown boy. You're going to take Duncan. I think Duncan goes in there and gets the knockout. I think it goes into the second round. First round is going to be a hell of a round, though. Let's just say that. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone goes out in the first round as well. Next fight, featherweight matchup. Jack Shore versus Makwan Amirkhani. Shore, 28 years old, 5'8" orthodox fighter, 16-1 record, 5-1 in the UFC, making his debut in this weight class. Wins over Aaron Phillips, Timur Valiev, and Hunter Azure. 75% finishing rate, 4 knockouts, 8 subs, 8 months between fights for him. Amirkhani, 34 years old, 5'10" southpaw, 17-8 record, 7-6 in the UFC. Wins over Mike Grundy, Danny Henry, and Jason Knight. 76% finishing rate, 1 KO, 12 subs, 8 months between fights for him as well. And he is sitting at the underdog position. Narco Cop, what do you see?
I see an interesting fight, to be honest, early on, especially. One thing to note, very important here, Jack Shore is moving up in weight from 135. So that's something you have to look at always. Jack Shore is not the biggest guy, so he's moving up to 45. And one thing I noticed right off the bat, and I think this is actually very, very important, early on, Amirkhani is going to be the way, way stronger guy. I mean, when you watch Amirkhani early on in fights, he's ragdolling a lot of guys. Like, I mean, just watch his fight against his last fight against Pierce. Pierce is extremely big for the division, and he's a strong guy himself and a grappler. And Amirkhani is basically rolling through him early on, getting takedowns, doing what he wants to do. But the one thing over and over and over with Amirkhani is he just doesn't know how to fight to kind of suppress all this energy that he puts out in the first round, right? You need to keep that energy for later rounds, and he just doesn't know how to do that. He's balls to the wall right when the bell rings. He does it in every single fight. Super dangerous early. Anacondas, again, this guy is Mr. Anaconda. That's what I nicknamed him. He's super dangerous with those submissions. And Shore has to be careful, very careful getting up and stuff like that. I think Amirkhani is going to be very successful early, but I think the same thing rears its head again here. Shore has good cardio. Shore is going to keep coming. I think he breaks Amirkhani down in the second round and finishes him via KO. I don't think Amirkhani's ever been subbed in his career. So I'm going to go with Shore by KO in round 2.
J-Spec.
Well, the people have no mixed feelings about this. The poll came in very strong for Mr. Shore, 82% signing up with Jack. Now, thinking about Jack, I was advocating for him to be on the previous London card. I thought the UFC was swinging and missing, not putting a guy on the previous London card when he was on a win streak. Way to miss the opportunity there, UFC. You're going to let the guy lose, then bring him on. But whatever. And that loss against, Ricky Simone, who's not a joke, that was a big test of, who's the better prospect at the time. Who should they put more effort into, in my opinion. And unfortunately, Shore came up short. Now, I like Shore. I usually kind of fade people switching weight classes for the first time until I see what's up with them. But even the worst thing is getting knocked out. And that's what happened to Amirkhani the last time he was out, right? So with that being said, weight class change versus getting slept, I'm going to go with Shore on this one. I think he'll get the hometown win. And that's my pick, Mr. Shore.
Amirkhani, yeah, he blows his load, man. He's like a porn star, right? That's what he does every single fight. And if it's not a first round finish, he loses or gets finished in the second or third round. And he has actually been submitted one time. And Jack Shore's also coming off his first loss as a professional, and he was submitted in that fight. And Jack Shore, he likes to go for the takedowns along the fence, and he exposes his neck sometimes with that. And if he's not careful, I think Amirkhani might be able to get a submission in the first round, in that storm. But Shore, he comes from a great team, and he has great coaches, great sparring partners, and he's a cerebral fighter, right? He's a guy that uses his brain, and I think he's going to go in there and he's going to get a decision. I think he needs to win. He doesn't need to excite anybody. That's not important for him. He needs to show that he could compete at featherweight in his featherweight debut, and I think that's what he's going to do. I see Shore getting the decision, but Amirkhani is going to come out and be wielding that stick, so to say. Anyways, moving on, main card time. Middleweight contender clash between Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze. Vettori, 29 years old, 6 foot southpaw, 18-5-1 record, 8-4-1 in the UFC. He has wins over Paulo Costa, Kevin Holland, and Jack Hermanson. 61% finishing rate, 2 knockouts, 9 subs, 6 months between fights for him. Dolidze, 34 years old, 6'2" orthodox fighter, 12-1 record, 8-1 in the UFC, 4 straight wins for him. Wins over Jack Hermanson, Phil Hawes, and Kyle Dawkins. 83% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 3 subs, 3-month turnaround for Dolidze. He is the underdog. Do you think that's justified, Knuckle Cop?
I do. I think Vettori, the veteran of the UFC, has fought the who's. Basically only loses to the best guys. I mean, when you look at this guy, his 2 losses are recently to Whitaker, Adesanya, and the one before that is Adesanya again. Like, no one else has beat this guy, right? The one thing I like about Vettori is he can mix it up. He can grapple, he can wrestle, he can strike. Not the best, cleanest striker, but the volume is there. The pressure is there. The cardio is there. This guy's been 5 rounds many, many times. And he pushes a nice pace. Look at the Costa fight. I mean, he landed, I don't even remember, probably close to 200 significant strikes in that fight. And it was a back and forth war. And he kept coming and coming and coming. And Dolidze is not used to that. When you look at Dolidze, very low volume, single strike type of guy, can easily get taken down, but always attacking, right? That's the one thing I do like about Dolidze. When he's on his back, he's not really on his back. He is attacking for leg locks, all types of knee bars, you name it, trying to get you to make a bigger mistake when he's attacking so he can advance position to get something else. And that's exactly what he did against Hermanson, right? He attacked, I believe it was a leg lock, some type of leg lock. Hermanson kind of defended wrong, twisted, and then he got him into a calf slicer, got his back, and eventually rolled him over and was on top and held that calf slicer and basically just, made the ref stop it because he couldn't do anything. He's very, very dangerous on the ground, but Vettori, I think, is more of a safe fighter on the ground. He knows how to keep that fight, he'll stay in guard. He'll know how to defend. The guy actually grapples with really good guys because he grapples over there at King's MMA. That's where he goes to do his grappling. And a lot of good guys are. Dariush, you name it. There's a very, very good grappling gym there. And Vettori is good on the ground. On the feet, I think he has a very big advantage as far as the volume the pressure, the kicking game, and we saw Dolidze he just lets people kick him, and he's not good at defending calf kicks, and Vettori's probably going to kick him to death. They're both southpaws. So at the end of the day, Vettori's not much of a finisher. I don't think he has big power in his hands. I don't like what I see from Dolidze as far as cardio. I think has very bad cardio, and I could see a world where Vettori finishes him in the third. But Vettori, again, is not much of a finisher. I'm going to go with Vettori by decision, but I'm pretty comfortable with Vettori here, man. I can't keep seeing Dolidze pull these miracle wins off every fight. So give me Vettori by decision.
J-Spec.
Andrew chiming in with, unless Marvin slips on a banana peel and gets subbed, he isn't losing this fight. People are putting a lot of stock into Roman, and he's incredibly one-dimensional. I can't favor a guy with zero striking game. I think Marvin outstrikes Roman to a decision win. J.L. Weimer says, I say Vettori is on the move up. And last, I'll share Spawn, Dolidze by boring decision. And the poll coming in with a tight one here. 57% of the voters going with Mr. Vettori on this one. And man, I had to think about this a lot, to be honest. I don't think it's as easy as some people have commented. I think at a certain point, bridesmaid syndrome starts to set in for Vettori, right? He can't beat the top of the pile. So what are you going to do? Just be the best number 5 guy in the world? That kind of sucks. On the other hand, we don't really know what maximum potential for Dolidze is. He's at that end of his, premium years, right? I mean, he's got to do it now or never. I kind of like that internal pressure. Lastly, I like a dude who goes over to the Ukraine and trains the Ukrainian people just for nothing, just for this humanitarian effort of that. And let's be real. Can we really trust a guy who can't put on shorts correctly? I don't know. So with that being said, I'm going with Roman Dolidze. I know I'm going against the grain, but give me some Roman on this one.
MMA Jesus 420, Roman via sub. C Animation, Narco, one of the GOATs for real, of course, man. We agree. Let's go to Dirty Reds. Volatile fight here. I'm going with Marvin via decision. This fight, man, Roman, I think his chance is to go to the ground and try to submit Vettori. Vettori has never been submitted, and he's just good everywhere. He's not great anywhere, but he's just good everywhere. And I don't think we're going to see him in much trouble. I think Vettori goes in there and exposes what Narco Cop talked about with the leg kicks. I think the leg kicks are just going to be a huge weapon for him. And if he does finish him, I could see him finishing him with leg kicks. Like he could damage that leg so bad because Dolidze will get desperate eventually throughout the fight in the second or third round. I'm taking Vettori by decision because who would take Vettori by stoppage? Not very many people are going to take that type of money, right? So let's go with something that's safe. Vettori by decision. Next fight coming up, a women's flyweight contender bout between Jennifer Maia and Casey O'Neill. Maia, 34 years old, 5'4" Orthodox fighter, 29-1 record, 5-5 in the UFC. She has wins over Marina Moroz, Jessica Ai, and Joanne Wood. 45% finishing rate, 4 KOs, 5 subs, 4-month turnaround for her, and she is the underdog. O'Neill, 25 years old, 5'6" Orthodox fighter, 9-0 undefeated record, 4-0 in the UFC, sitting on 14 straight wins. Wins over Roxanne Modafferi, Antonina Shevchenko, and Shanna Dobson. 56% finishing rate, 3 KOs, 2 subs, 13-month layoff due to an injury and surgery. Narco Cop, what do you see, man?
Man, I don't like the fact that O'Neill's coming off surgery. I think it's been like 8 or 9 months, 9 months, I think, to be exact. And it was if I'm not mistaken, it was ACL. So it's a pretty big knee surgery. Usually athletes come back, it's like a year frame. So I think she's come back a little early. The other thing is she's coming back off a win that does not really look too good, a split decision against Modafferi. It went in a lot of people had Modafferi actually winning that fight somehow. I had it for O'Neal, but again, it's not a great look against an older lady in Modafferi that's recently retired. Then when you look at Jennifer Maia and when you tell me Jennifer Maia, it's like this girl's been in the UFC for ages. That's what clicks in my mind right away. But when you look at it, she's only 34 years old. She's not that old. She looked really, really good against Marina Moreau's last fight. I mean, she just confused Marina Moreau's leg kicks. Everything she did was on point. She's a vet in the UFC. She's fought, very, very good fighters, and she's basically only lost to very, very good fighters. I think Casey O'Neill is up for it here, man. I don't know if she's going to be able to deal with Maia here coming off an injury. Like I said, a long layoff. I like Maia here by decision, man. I think people are underestimating Jennifer Maia.
J-Spec, are the people underestimating Jennifer Maia in the polls?
Well, yes. 69%. 69% coming in strong for Miss O'Neal. All right. Maia's being overlooked. Any discussion I've been a part of so far, it's been pretty much like, who's this Maia person? Which is crazy because of her veteranship, like Narco just previously mentioned. This fight is going to be pretty competitive, and there's a lot of question marks on it on Casey O'Neal's side, right? Just sharing real quick from Preston. If Maia can't keep O'Neal striking at bay, it's going to be a long day. I want to see how Casey handles coming off the knee injury, since I'm sure Maia will test it. Casey wrestles Maia to the ground and gets the TKO win. It's pretty optimistic. I'm not for, as you guys see, I'm not for undefeated records coming into the UFC, but I am for undefeated records inside the UFC. And until Casey O'Neal fumbles the bag or lets us down, it's hard for me to not keep picking her at this point. I do respect Maia. I think she's pretty darn good. And with that all being said, I'm not very confident, but I'm going with Miss O'Neal on this one.
MMA Jesus 420 is taking Maia via decision. Visualize Ultimate Fighting O'Neal with the chain grappling advantage. And Dirty Reg 22, we know Maia making it to the judges, but does she fall short, I'm on the fence about that part. When you look at Casey O'Neal, right, in the beginning of her career compared to the last couple of fights, you see a shift in her style when she went to Extreme Couture in Las Vegas. Before that, she was training out in Thailand. She was training out in her home country of Australia, and she was wrestling based, grappling based, and she won a lot of her fights with that. And even a couple of first fights in the UFC, she won with that as well. But then that Roxanne Modafferi fight, she started to try to test out her striking. She cannot do that in this fight. She cannot go out there and think, I'm going to go test out my striking. She needs to go out there and utilize her strong base, which is her wrestling, which is her grappling. If she does that, I think she goes in there and takes out Maia. I think she beats Maia. But if she tries to play around and strike with Maia, I think Maia is just more advanced and maybe just more well-rounded in the striking compared to O'Neal. But I'm going to go out on a limb. I think I'm going to go with not Maia, but I'm going to go with O'Neal. I think O'Neal wins by submission in the second round. Crazy, I know, but hey, sometimes you got to make crazy picks. Next fight up, welterweight matchup between Gunnar Nelson and Brian Barberena. Nelson, 34 years old, 5'11", switch stance fighter, 18-5-1 record, 9-5 in the UFC, wins over Takashi Sato, Albert Tumanov, and Cowboy Oliveira. 89% finishing rate, 4 KOs, 12 subs, 1 year layoff for him. Barberena, 33 years old, 6 foot southpaw, 18-9 record, 9-7 in the UFC, wins over Robbie Lawler, Matt Brown, and Darion Weeks. 72% finishing rate, 11 KOs, 2 subs, 3-month turnaround. He is the underdog. Before we get to Narco Cop, I'm going to play a clip from my interview with Brian.
Yeah, it's definitely different. He's bouncing around a lot. He's a lot of movement, circling the cage and things like that. So definitely poses his own challenges. It's something we've been working, obviously, in camp. But It's like I said, it's funny because after this last fight, we've been going over a lot of things we've been doing fit in perfectly with this matchup. Honestly, I'm expecting a grappling match. That's what he wants. I think that's what he wants. If it stands on feet, if he wants to keep it on the feet, I think that's a big mistake for him. And his best bet is to take me to the ground and work his jiu-jitsu. Like I said, I believe I'm the better wrestler. I'm going to shut down his attempts, and we're going to look to keep it on the feet and make him pay for it. So if it does happen to go to the ground, I'm ready for that, ready to work, and been putting a lot of time in. So, I just think, he wants a grappling match. I'm going to come make it a fight.
Now, Cobb, do you see this fight playing out on the feet or on the ground?
It's hitting the ground. I mean, Bryan Barberena, I know he said I'm the better wrestler. I don't really see that. I mean, not when I watch his tape. Guy has been getting taken down pretty easily a bunch in his recent tape. So Gunnar Nelson is going to get this fight to the ground. It's just a matter of when. However, Barberena is not easy to sub. Like, he's been sub once, I believe, in his career. He's got a long, long career. The guy's been in the UFC almost 10 years. And he's still only 33. Another guy that I feel like has been in the UFC forever, but it's still only 33, which is not bad. However, I do think Gunnar Nelson gets this fight to the ground. The question is, does he find the submission? I don't think so. I think Barberena is a veteran. I think Barberena kind of, like he said in his interview, he's expecting Gunnar Nelson to get the fight to the ground. He's been training a lot of, I'm gonna assume he meant jiu-jitsu. So I'm gonna go with Gunnar Nelson by decision, maybe similar to what we saw against Takashi Sato, where he had Sato's back for 14 minutes of the 15 minutes of the fight, but he couldn't finish. So I'm going to go with Gunnar Nelson, but I don't think he finishes here. Decision.
J-Spec.
First off, I want to tell everybody to go watch that interview because you're going to learn a lot about Bryan Barberena, the way he thinks and what he's about right now. Some things like he's his own agent, right? He advocates for himself. He makes his own matches. He calls the matchmakers himself, and he says this is an advantage because it helps him get what he wants. Not always, but helps be no misconceptions or mixed messages there, right? The other part, like Narco said, he's expecting grappling, and he expects to counter wrestle or anti-wrestle to get that match back to the feet where he thinks that he's the better fighter. I think he's the better fighter. Most people think he's a better fighter on the feet. The other thing is it's night and day here, right? We have a veteran who's been kind of a ghost in Mr. Nelson, and then Bam Bam has been like all in our face recently. He's been all over the place. So tale of two different things going on with these veterans. I'm more inclined to go with the long shot here. Jump on my back if you want to. Bam, 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 bam.
All right. Zigant, I'm only here for J-Spec's deep well of knowledge in the Department of Geopolitics. Well, thank you so much. Sultry Nuts, didn't Matt Brown take this guy down? And Dirty Reg 22, Gunnar's finished opponents in 7 of his 9 UFC wins. I love the upside there. Man, I love Bryan Barberena. He's a gamer. He's a guy. He's a fan favorite, right? But you got to go with the grappler here. You got to go with the grappler. And he has decent wrestling. Nelson has faced some of the best guys. So has Bryan Barberena. But I think Nelson just goes in there and is able to take him down. You know, Bryan's going to be able to get back up. I think Nelson's going to be able to take him down again, rinse and repeat. And eventually he's going to find the submission. I'm going to take Gunnar Nelson via submission in the second round. Next fight, co-main event. Man, this is the banger right here, right? Co-main event. Lightweight contender bout, Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Gaethje, 34 years old, 5'11" orthodox fighter, 23-4 record, 6-4 in the UFC, wins over Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson, and Edson Barboza. 87% finishing rate, 19 knockouts, 1 submission, 9 months between fights for him. He is the underdog in this matchup. Fiziev, 30 years old, 5'8", switch stance fighter, 12-1 record, 6-1 in the UFC, sitting on 6 straight wins. Wins over RDA, Brad Riddell, and Renato Moicano. 75% finishing rate, 8 KOs, 1 sub, 8 months between fights for him. Narco Cop, man, this is an interesting one right here, boy.
Yeah, it's a banger, man. What a great co-main event. I mean, has Gaethje been in any fights that haven't been great? I don't know of any. I think the Chandler one is probably one of the best fights I've watched. I love rewatching that one. It was amazing. Even the Oliveira fight, for as long as it lasted, I mean, what an insane back and forth in that fight against Charles. But yeah, in this fight, man, Gaethje's just been in so many wars, and I hate seeing that with fighters. It catches up with you, and I think it's catching up with Gaethje. You know, the guy's had historically a crazy good chin, but we see it kind of withering a little. You know, he's getting hurt a lot in the Chandler fight, and again, Chandler hits very hard, but then he gets dropped in the Oliveira fight before he gets choked out. You know, he gets ground. You know, first of all, it was ground and pound. Then he gets that triangle choke eventually by Nurmagomedov. But yeah, this guy's just, you know, been in way too many wars throughout his career. And I'm not just talking about recently. Recently, it's just been, you know, where he's getting hurt a lot more and dropped. Now he's facing a guy in Fiziev who I had one question on this guy. My question was, what does this guy's cardio look like in a high-paced, you know, long fight? And I think that was answered in Dos Anjos fight, right? His cardio looked really good and eventually found a finish against a guy that's very, very, very hard to finish in Dos Anjos. Now he has a guy in front of him. It's a 3-round fight. He's got a guy that's just going to stand right there in front of him the way he wants it, right? And he's probably going to swing for the fences like he normally does. The one thing that I will say is Gaethje has a very good weapon in his calf kicks, and they're very nasty. But Fiziev is a Muay Thai fighter. Fiziev knows how to check those things. And if he checks one or two of them, Gaethje's going to be done with kicking his calf, you know. And the one advantage that Gaethje does have here is exactly that, the calf kick. But I don't think it's going to work here against Fiziev. Fiziev defensively is way better. Overall striking, he's way better. I mean, when you look at the hands and the feet, it's just not close. So, experienced Gaethje, but outside of that, like, I don't see any advantages for Gaethje. And if people are saying, and I've been hearing a lot of, oh, Gaethje might put on a singlet. Have you guys watched Fiziev's takedown defense? I mean, the guy has a pristine takedown. He does everything right when it comes to takedown defense. So it's not working here. I really like Fiziev in this spot. I think it's going to be a knockout. It could happen in any round, but let's go with knockout round 2.
J-Spec.
This is a banger, and I think it's a perfect time to remind everybody a new feature on the All-Star app, the head-to-head challenges. And I welcome respectfully any challenges. I'll take everyone on respectfully because, you know, I'm pretty beatable, right? Anyways, so we're going to go to the fans, and we got a couple of comments here. Jitsu fan art saying, I see Fiziev being very patient, checking all Gaethje's low kicks. Fiziev will come out, Fiziev will be more accurate with his striking, winning by TKO. Leon on the other side says, Gaethje, that in-your-face phone booth style. And the poll, the tightest, I mean, besides the one we had 50-50, the second closest poll we have 52% squeaking ahead. Fiziev getting the go-ahead by the fans. Man, can I say the only complaint I have about this fight is that it's not a 5-rounder, and that's basically it, man. I'm going to be looking forward to it. It's going to be really exciting. I just have to agree with a lot of the things that Narco's saying. Like, Gaethje's got a great chin, but you don't want that to even be a factor, and it's going to have to be because Fiziev is going to find it. With that being said, I'll keep it short. Fiziev for the dub here.
Activate Ace has been seeing Gaethje wrestling with his wrestling coach on Embedded a whole lot recently. Maybe a sign. Dirty Reg. I'm a Fizz guy and not much of a Justin guy, so no capping needed for me here. and MMA Jesus 420, Justin via leg kicks. The question mark about the cardio. The reason why his cardio was better is because before the RDA fight, he had acquired a new conditioning coach, right? And this conditioning coach is somebody I know personally, someone I actually trained with, and I've seen RDA or Fiziev training with him in person, and now he's continued that into this fight, and he's probably going to continue that for the rest of his career because he's seen the benefits of that, and he's actually in his corner in London right now. And you know who else he wrestles with? He wrestles with Frank Hitman, who also is in his corner this weekend, and I know him personally as well, and I've known a lot of stuff about Fiziev. I've seen him train over the years, even before he was in the UFC, and he's always had good wrestling, but he's only known for his striking, right? And maybe if Gaethje goes out there and wrestles, we'll see something. Who knows? But I don't think we will. I think they're going to stand and bang. And Fiziev, he has a chin. Fiziev, he has all the weapons. And I think he goes out there and he has the performance of his life. I think this is the one where he does the breakout performance where he just, I know he's had some incredible performances, but this is the one. Let's go Fiziev by knockout. First round. I don't think he plays around. I think he goes out there and works Gaethje in this fight, even though I love Gaethje as well. Main event time. Man, this is an incredible fight. I love this fight. Welterweight title, immediate rematch. Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Edwards, 31 years old, 6'2", southpaw, 23 record, 12-2 in the UFC, 10 straight wins for him. Wins over Nate Diaz, Rafael Dos Anjos, and Vicente Luque. 50% finishing rate, 7 KOs, 3 subs. On the flip side, you got Usman, 35 years old, 6-foot switch stance fighter, 20-2 record, 15-1 in the UFC. Wins over Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Tyrone Woodley. 50% finishing rate, 9 knockouts, 1 sub. Here we go. What do we got, Narco?
Yeah, I mean, incredible fight again. You know, this is the third time, but when you look at the last fight, Edwards had success early, got Usman's back in the first round, which was really surprising to me. But then gets completely demolished in the next 3 rounds, right? I mean, Usman did whatever he wanted in round 2, 3, and 4. Basically taking Edwards down, grinding him out. And Edwards at one point there in that fight, can't remember which round it was, it looked like it was getting close to him being stopped, basically, with the ground and pound. Like, he wasn't responding well. He looked very bad, like, physically, and the way he was walking back to his corner. He just looked like a shot fighter. In the 5th round, I think Usman was dominating again in the 5th round before he ate that head kick. And props to Edwards for setting that up, and it landed flush and put out Usman. But how replicable is something like that? You know, when we already watched these guys go for so many rounds, and Usman has just looked like the better fighter. Yes, Usman is aging, and yes, he's getting older, and, you know, there's a lot of questions about his knees, and, you know, there's other injury concerns that have been propping up and stuff like that. But you know, this fight was less than a year ago, and the same people talked about Usman's knees, yet he still went out there and completely put on a wrestling clinic, right? Now we're, you know, 9 months later, 10 months later, whatever, and the knees are continuing to, you know, the same thing is continuing to come up. I don't think it's going to be an issue, man. I think Usman has way better cardio, first of all. The one thing with Edwards, and I'm not going to say he has bad cardio, but he seems to really slow down in the middle rounds. And even in the 5th round against Diaz, where he got rocked very, very bad against Nate Diaz, who honestly doesn't have a lot of power, I think part of that was attributed to him slowing down and being tired. I think Kamaru Usman wins here. He's going to use the same thing, the wrestling. I know age is a little bit of factor, injuries, like I said, but the guy is just dominated, to be honest, in the 2 previous fights, and I think it continues here. I don't think Edwards has an answer. You just can't learn to defend takedowns. This, you know, you can learn it, but not at this Usman level. Usman's such a good grappler and wrestler. It's just very, very hard to defend, man, and I don't think he can defend them. So give me Usman. It's a matter of how I want Usman to win here, how I think he wins. And I kind of think Usman breaks him and makes a point here. I think Usman round 4 KO.
J-Spec.
First, I want to thank our growing list of MMA All-Stars out there. Thank you so much for participating in our polls. So many of you commented. I can't read them all or we'll be here till tomorrow. So I'm going to pick 3. All right, Brianna Frost coming in with, love Leon, but I love Usman more. LOL. I hope he doesn't get too comfortable this time. I'm sure he'll be on his toes and very careful. I was confident in his win last time and I ate my words. Seeing him vulnerable on the floor like that sucked. Usman by decision. And then we'll go with Den saying Leon catches Usman with a knee as he goes up to hug a leg. Nap time. And final one from Sicko saying headshot dead Leon by KO. Interesting takes there. For me, dude, this is a great fight. I love it all. But one thing we can say about Usman, his hands has gotten better. He can disguise his wrestling attack coming at you. He's one of those guys that can really blend what's going on, what he's trying to do to you. And I think he won most of those rounds, like Narco said. I think most of the world all feels that way. I don't think he falls asleep at the wheel again. I'm going to use a UK term. He stays switched on the entire time. All right. And we see the belt become new for Kamaru Usman.
All right. Dirty Red 22 Usman decision for me. I think the fight goes sultry nuts. One last time, Kamaru, show the world how great you are. Brianna Frost back in here. Usman by knockout or decision. And MMA Jesus 420. Usman by submission. Now, what is my pick? My pick is going to be Kamaru Usman. Yeah, I think he's gonna get a finish. I think I'm gonna go with round 3, and we're gonna see him get the ground and pound finish. The reason why I say that is because we've seen this lately in these big fights, right? Where there's a guy who's primarily a striker goes against a guy who's primarily a grappler, and most of the time the grappler finds the way to win, finds the way to get to the fight to the ground and gets the victory. And I just think that Usman, he is getting old, like Narco said, but I think he just has the tools and he's just a better all-around fighter. I think he goes in there and does what he needs to do. I think his mind is set on winning, and I think eventually it's going to happen. When you guys talk about and question the cardio of Edwards, you guys got to remember that fight was in Salt Lake City. You know what I mean? That was in elevation, right? Kamaru trains in elevation in Denver. Edwards doesn't. There's also Edwards fighting in his hometown, and it goes back to the pressure stuff. Does he have too much pressure? Does he have too much pressure to replicate what he did before, and he's going to chase that? And while chasing that, he's going to lose, sway away from the game plan or whatnot, and Kamaru's going to take advantage. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Kamaru's going to be doing what he always does, and he's going to end up winning this fight and getting that belt back to the U.S. Everybody, thank you guys for joining us, and make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the All-Star app. Make your picks on there, and we'll be back for another show next week, same exact time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Narco Cop, tell us where they can find you. Tell us what what kind of stuff you got going on right now.
Thanks for having me, John. They can find me, Narco Cop, on Twitter, Narco Cop MMA on my YouTube channel. I have a show tomorrow with my co-host, Timothy Troiano. We do the Lambeau Place podcast, 9:00 Eastern, always there, always giving big long shot props, winning week after week, which has been pretty crazy. We were hosted on the MMA Hour back-to-back weeks, so that was really nice. Ariel Halwani and Connor Burke. So, yeah, and then you guys can catch my live space every fight card every Saturday on Live Spaces on Twitter.
Yeah, if you want to make money, you got to go and follow Narco Cop, man. That's without a doubt. J-Spec, what can you tell us before we head out?
First off, I missed the shot right there. 64% of the vote for the poll came in for Usman. Sorry about that. Also, on Saturday for the watch party, join us for the All-Star. We're going to have special guest UFC heavyweight Felipe Lins join us. So get your heavyweight questions ready and come talk to a very, very friendly killer of a dude. My tag's right here on Twitter. Come see me.
All right, guys. Appreciate you, and we'll be back next week. See you, and take it easy this weekend.